I'm here in my polka dot studio in the Netherlands, and it is so hot here. We are not used to this kind of weather. It's way too hot for us. We don't have air conditioning in our homes here, so I'm going to do a demonstration with wax crayons, but they are like almost melting on my table, and paint is like drying instantly. So let's see how this will work today. But we're going to try. Is it time yet to start? Italy, hi, welcome. Michigan, Scotland, nice, Florida, all over the world. Thank you so much for joining tonight. So what we're going to do today is a resist technique with wax crayons, and I'm using Crayola, and I think you can get them everywhere in the world, and they are the most or least expensive crayons you can get, wax crayons you can get. You could do this also with oil-based sticks or something like that, but in my opinion these Crayola wax crayons work the best of all of them, and they are the cheapest, so why would you spend more money? But if you happen to have any oil-based pastels or something like that, you can definitely try. You could even try with a candle, as long as it is waxy or oily, then you could actually try if the technique works. So what you can do is you can draw or create texture on paper using the crayons, and the crayon will resist the paint. So if you, for instance, draw something on a sheet of copier paper, and I'm going to do something very simple. I'm just going to draw circles, and I'm now using a white crayon, but you can use any color of crayon. And if it's too much to think about colors straight away, you can just go for the print, and it doesn't really matter which color of crayon you use. But I actually a lot of times like this paper, which is basically the negative of the print, even better than the print itself. So if you want to, you can also think about the color of crayon you're using to make your drawing. So I don't know if you can see it, but I will keep it closer to the camera. You can see that my crayon is very soft. That's because it's so hot in here. It might affect the print a little bit, but it should be okay. So let's just try. As you can see, I drew some circles here, and if everything goes right, then the circles will resist the paint on the plate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply some paint to the plate. And I'm just going to start with one color to keep it easy to get, so you get to see the process before we start using all different kinds of colors. So I'm just using a darker color, and I'm rolling out the paint on the plate. A nice thin layer, nice even layer. And now I'm going to put my paper with the crayon drawing on the plate with the wax down, facing the plate. And I'm going to rub very lightly to start with, because I can lift up the paper and see how much of the paint actually is already absorbed by the paper. And as you can see, this is pretty perfect already. So you can see where the wax is, the paint, the paint stayed on the plate. So the paint was resisted by the wax crayon and was not absorbed by the paper. So this I can actually take a paper towel and kind of wipe away the wet paint from the drawing. And that's what I meant. So here I used only white. You can even use a baby wipe if you want to remove a little bit more. If you would think about the colors you use to create your drawing, then this can also be a very nice print. And a lot of times I like this one even better than that one. So this has to dry, which is very easy with these temperatures. So this will probably be dry already. And now I'm going to take some paint to pull the print. So I'm using some white and a little bit of yellow. And again, I have to do a very thin layer. I can't say it enough. When you want to pull dry product from the jelly plate, you need a very, very thin layer of paint. If you use too much paint, you will only pull the top layer and not the dried product from the plate. So here we go. Now I have to rub a little bit more. And then the resisted paint from the wax should be on the print. And it is. So this is very, very, very simple. And when you get the idea of this technique, then you can start experimenting with different colors, using more than one color, using more intricate designs. But this is just to get the idea of how this works. So instead of just draw something, now let's do one in color also before I go to the next one. So let's draw something in a bright color, like a hot pink. And I'm just going to create a texture. So, and I'm going to do very simple designs here because I don't want you to watch me draw forever. But of course, at home you can take as much time as you need to draw something nice. And even sometimes when you clean off your printing paper, you sometimes can even make a second print of it. So that's worth trying. Make sure that the layer of wax is thick enough, because if you only have like a thin layer, if you draw something like this, it will just not be enough to resist the paint. So you really need a nice layer of wax on your paper. So let's do a couple more colors than we did just before. And if there's too much paint on the plate, it's better to roll it off on some cleaning paper than leaving it on there, because you will just not get nice prints if you leave the excess paper paint on the plate. It just doesn't work. So now I'm going to put this back on the plate. Rub very lightly. I hardly touch the paper. I just want to make sure that it touches the plate everywhere. And then I lift it up to see if it needs more rubbing. So I can, if I want to, I can do more rubbing. But I like a little bit of a distressed look. So I'm not rubbing too much. And again, now you can clean this one a little bit and make the color of the crayon you used pop more. So that's what I meant with thinking about which color of crayon to use, because you can probably imagine that this would look totally different when you would use a white crayon than it does now with the almost neon pink. And it gives a very distressed look. It would look totally different if you would just draw with the crayon on a printed background, right? So you can do all kinds of fun stuff with that. Now I'm going to pick that one up again. And some white. Thin layer. But I have to be careful now because it's so hot. If I brayer too much, I will just brayer off all the paint and it will dry on the plate before I can even pull the print. So I have to be a little bit careful with the amount of paint I'm using right now. So here we go. Now, isn't that cool? I think this is really cool. I love this. Not sure if you can really see the color good enough, but hey Karin, nice to see you. So instead of doing freehand drawing, you can also work with textures, like for instance stencils or masks, and you can use them to create a texture on your paper using the crayons and then make a print. So let's do that. Let me see, which color am I going to use? Maybe this one. So what you do is you place the paper that you want to print with on top of the stencil, and then you take the crayon, and it's best to keep it as flat as possible, because if you do it like this, you will also go in the open areas and you only want to have the crayon on the higher parts of the stencil. So it's best to keep it as flat as possible and then rub very firmly. To make sure that you get all the details. And if you do a larger stencil or you want to do larger prints, you can just use some masking tape or something to just make sure the paper doesn't move while you're rubbing the stencil. So now this is the texture that we're going to print. And let's see, what colors are we going to use? How about a darker green? Actually, no, not a green, because that's too close to this and I want this to stand out also after I used it to print with. So I'm doing a lighter green and a pink, which is actually quite dangerous using them together. Oops. Pink and green is a nice color combination, but you could get mud when you mix them. So maybe I'll do some blue in between to be safe. This is too much. I have to take away some of that. That's too bad. Such a shame. Okay. Okay. I think this will work. Let's see. Might be a little bit too much paint actually. Let's see what that does with the print. Because if you use too much paint on the plate and you put this paper on top, the wax will not be able to really resist the paint if there's too much paint, and the paper will not be able to absorb enough of the paint. But this is pretty okay, I think. I might even have rubbed a little bit too much. Now let's see what I get here. Look at that blue here in the pink. That's really nice. So this paint already dried quite a lot, so I'm going to take another baby wipe that it's a little bit wet, and I can take away some of that dry tape that is still on top of the wax. And I really like these little bits, and I think the light might not be perfect here, but I'm sure you get the idea. And now let's pull this one. Yeah, love it, love it, love it. I just wish I had used another color instead of just white to pull this print. But yeah, that's a matter of taste, I suppose, and experiment. So instead of using a stencil, the wax, the texture you get when you rub on paper and there's something underneath, is you only need very little texture under your paper to get a nice texture on your paper actually. And that means that even if you have some paper that is a little bit thicker than copier paper and you would cut shapes out of it, it could serve as a stencil, which will be thick enough to actually create a nice texture on your print. So what I'm going to do is just very random cut some shapes from the paper. let's just see. Of course, when you will probably even see the fold. When I open this and I do the rubbing, you might even see the fold. So if you do this at home and you want to make a really nice texture, then it's better, of course, to use a cutting mat and a craft knife. But this is just to show you that it actually works. So what I haven't got here, but what you might have, or what is maybe easy to get, is some textured wallpaper, or yeah, just anything actually that is flat and has a texture will work with this technique. I remember that I was teaching with my friend Natalie somewhere, and we did this technique, and we actually rubbed the wall of the workshop room. If I remember right, it was with Natalie, which was fun. People with their paper and their wax crayons rubbing the wall. So yeah, anything you can find in your home or around your home can be used as texture for this technique. So I'm just really quickly finishing this, and meanwhile I'm going to see if I see any questions popping up, but I don't think there are any questions right now. So embossing folder would be good too. Yes, that's absolutely true, and I actually have two here waiting to show you. So that will be the next one. Embossing folders are really great for this technique. So this is just hand cut paper that I'm going to use as a mask, and I'm just going to rub that paper. And even here I could use more than one color, of course, because that might actually be fun too, a fun print. Okay, so not sure if you can see it, but yeah, you can see it. That's the texture of the paper. What size do you cut your paper for prints? That depends. It depends on the plate that I'm using, the size of the plate that I'm using. It also depends what I'm going to use my prints for. I really like my paper to be a little bit bigger than the plate, so I get a nice wide frame, kind of a frame around my prints, like this one, for instance. So and then I can make sure that it is nice in the middle of the paper. But it depends. If I have paper that I'm going to use as collage paper, like this will probably all be collage paper, then I don't really care how big my paper is. I just want it to be fully print. So it really depends on what I'm going to do with my prints. Okay, let's make a print of this one using, this is a nice color, and a dark blue is also a nice one. Yeah. Okay, there we go. Ooh. Again, that's more than I expected. I think that's because it's so hot, the paint is thinner than it's normally, and it's coming out of the tubes very easily. but we'll make it work. I hope. I hope I can make it work. Okay. Okay, so this is my negative, and I think that's a cool one. Let me get a wet baby wipe. It's a bit messy, but that's okay. It's worth it. So, isn't it amazing that this is making this? I like that it's so grungy, so distressed, so you don't really know what the outcome will be. It's very unpredictable, and that really is the fun part of gel printing anyway, I think, that you don't really know what you get, right? It's always a surprise, and a lot of times it's a really nice surprise, and sometimes it isn't, and when it isn't, you just print another layer on top until it is, until you love it. Just go on. So, let's do something silly. Pink and yellow. See what that brings us. I think I might like this. Let's see. Yeah, liking it. So you have this and this, two totally different prints out of this one stencil. So a negative and a positive, which is fun. The only thing you have to keep in mind is when you use this one for art journaling, the one with the wax, that it is of course wax, and it can be hard to use other products on top of this. Like you can paint on top of it, that's no problem, but if you would use like a pen or something on top, then that might not want to write or draw on top of the wax. But I think this is pretty cool. So somebody already mentioned it, and that's the next one that I'm going to show you, is embossing folders. So I have some embossing folders here, and if you know embossing folders, if you have used them before, then you know that embossing folders actually have a positive and a negative. So you can use both sides, and they will give a totally different technique, so or a different look. So I will do both of them so you can actually see the difference. Now I'm going to clean my jelly plate a little bit, just here in the middle. Not too much. I like it when in the next print these little leftovers pop up, so I don't clean my plate too much. So another sheet of paper on to create a texture, and maybe it would be fun to do a print on a different kind of paper. Maybe I can actually print on book paper. And I also have here parchment paper, which is Gelli arts actually, and this is really a nice material if you want to use your prints for collage. So that's really a good idea to print on there too. Yeah, so we're doing the embossing folder. This one. So now you can see here that I went in too much, keeping my crayon too much like this. So the flatter it is, the better your texture will be. Because now when I will make the print, this part here will also resist the paint. And it can be fun, but if you don't want that, then make sure that you keep your crayon as flat as possible. So this is the one side, and then this one is going to be the other one. Positive and negative. This is also a fun one, I think. Oops. Okay. So, two sides of an embossing folder. Now let's print them. Okay, number one. That's number one. Let's clean this. Ooh, look at that. That's a nice color combination. That really stands out. So yeah, absolutely, when you start doing this, try using different colors of crayons, because as I said, this one is just as pretty, or maybe even prettier than the one that you will pull from there. And now let's print on book paper and see how that works. Some yellow, little bit of yellow, and more orangey yellow. Let's actually do orange. I haven't used orange yet. And this might be a really nice one. Color combination with the blue. It might also be very yucky, but we'll see. We'll see. Go. Oops, now I left it on too long, and because the paint is drying so quickly, my paper stuck to the plate. But that's okay. So I think this is yucky. But anyway, that's a matter of taste, and with a different color it might actually be a nice print. So let's try another color for this one. How about red? Let's try some red. And some magenta. So if you like this technique and you are maybe new to jelly printing, or even if you are a little bit more advanced or even advanced and you would like to see more fun techniques, then of course you can find all kinds of videos on the Jelly Arts YouTube video. But also my friends Marcia and Natalie and I have just launched a new workshop called Time Traveler, which will start this Monday, August 17, and you can still sign up. And the fun thing about that workshop is that all three of us chose a time era to be inspired by, and we all created a book, a little book, using different gel printing techniques. So you can see all different ways, a lot of different ways that you can use gel prints in a book, in a journal. And it's a lot of fun, and it's called Time Traveler. And if you go to my Instagram feed or to We Are Time Travelers, bit.ly/ is it slash? I don't know. Maybe Sarah can put the link in the comments. But then you can follow us there and maybe join our workshop and learn even more fun techniques with the gel plate, using the gel plate. I think I need a little bit of white with this, because otherwise it's getting too dark. Thank you, Sarah, for sharing the link. So if you're interested in a fun workshop where you have 3 different teachers showing you a variety of gel printing techniques, all making a different book, binding a different book, a 3-week workshop, then follow the link for more information and join us. We would love to see you in our classroom. So and here we have another very lovely one, I think. So yeah, what I did tonight was I used wax crayons. The first ones I did was just hand drawing. This was a very simple one with just using one color to draw and one color to print, the first one. And then I did one where I used multiple colors to do the print. So this is the crayon. I used a pink crayon which does not affect in any manner this print. This print is all about the paint that's staying behind, that is resisted by the crayon, that's staying behind on the plate. So the paint you put on the plate before you put this on there, that will be the color that will be left behind on the plate, and that is going to show up in your print. So that was the next one. Then I used a stencil. So you can use stencils, and this is a very detailed stencil, which is always harder to get the texture completely. So if you have a stencil that has more bolder lines and less details, then it will probably show better. But this is the one with the crayon. So the blue is actually the crayon, and this is the print of the resisted paint. And then I showed how I hand cut a very quick stencil, just from a little bit thicker copier paper, which also creates enough texture to do this. So this is the wax, and this is the print from the resisted paint on the plate. And then finally I showed the embossing folder, a positive and a negative, and so this was the one side. And although I like how this one turned out, this one was a little bit yucky, at least I think so. I don't really like the color combination, but that could be totally different with another color. And then this is the other side of the embossing folder, and then this is the crayon, and this is the print. So I used 3 different colors here to pull the print. And here I printed on book paper, and you can also print on parchment paper. And you could also use even on tissue paper, like really thin tissue paper. You can print on watercolor paper. It doesn't really matter. Any paper will work. The only thing you have to keep in mind is the paper you use to create the texture. So if I have my stencil here, and the paper that I put on top of the stencil to create the texture, this paper has to be thin. Because if this paper is too thick, you will not catch the texture of the stencil or whatever you have underneath. I think I showed you all the different ways. Maybe you can come up with even more ways of using it. Like I said, you can do it, keep the paper to your wall, or go outside and have maybe stones in the pavement or whatever that creates nice texture, or packaging material that can work as a nice texture. Just look around and you will find something, I guess. And I wonder if there are any questions. So anything that's not clear about this, because this is not really science, right? Anybody can do it. If you know how to do it, you can do it. It's really easy. Kids actually like this very much too, because you can, if you have kids and you need to keep them busy because they can't go to school now with Corona, then, and you want to do something artsy with them, you can first have them do some kind of scavenger hunt and find textures to create the printing material, and then take the gel plates out and make some art with them, and I'm sure they will love it. What do you use to wipe off paint? Well, if it's not too hot and the paint on the wax is still wet when you made the print, then you can just use some paper towels. But if the paint dries on the wax, you can use a baby wipe, or even just have your paper towel and make it a little bit wet so you can wipe off the paint. Because it's on the wax, it will come off even if it's dry already. If you use a little bit of water, then it will come off. Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure. Got 2 kids coming tomorrow to Jelly Roll. This will be great. This will absolutely be great. I'm sure they will love it. And yeah, please share your work with us. If you are on Instagram, then please tag us, Jelli Arts, at Jelli Arts, so we can see what you do with what you learn here in the Facebook Lives. We would love to see it. Thank you. Thank you all. It's 4 in the morning and I'm all inspired. You must be in Australia or something then. 4 in the morning. Did you get up to see this? Wow. That's awesome. Okay. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a nice day, evening, night, wherever in the world you are, and hopefully I will see you again next time. Bye-bye. Bye.